Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Jim.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Jim Holden. I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah!
I'm thirsty, newcomer. Thirsty? I'm thirsty. I know how you feel. David, thanks for asking me to come out. Looks like there's a couple chairs up here if somebody back there needs a place to sit. You can take my seat. I'll be standing here for a while. I'd rather be sitting down there, but that's not the guidelines, I guess. I really want to take a minute and welcome the newcomers, and I'm really impressed with Chris already. Chris, when they asked for newcomers the first time, Chris says, "My name's Chris, I'm an addict," and he came up and took his chip, and he caught alcoholism and said, "Chris, I'm an alcoholic." So, welcome, Chris. I'm glad you're here. I understand that because, you know, when I got sober, I didn't have an alcohol problem, so I thought. Yeah, I thought I had a little problem with the freeze-dried alcohol, crack cocaine, and I'd go to meetings because I wanted, you know, I never fit in anywhere. I never was welcomed anywhere. It'd been a long time since I heard the words welcome, and people really mean it, you know, and without wanting to know how much money or dope I had in my pocket or if I was buying drinks that night, and I come to AA and you say welcome, and then they ask me to identify myself, and I'm like, okay, what sounds cool? You know? And so I introduced myself for the first probably 90 days that I was an alcoholic and a rock star, because I like rocks, and not because I play music. And then I got this thing called a sponsor, and Corey kindly said, no. Now part of my old men's stag that I used to go to said, if you're in an AA meeting and you introduce yourself as an alcoholic and a drug addict, make sure you put $2 in the basket. So I lost all that and I caught alcoholism. Is what happened. As I just caught alcoholism. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. It wasn't on my goals of my life to be a speaker at the Marina Center on a Wednesday night. That wasn't the goal when I was like 15. You know, I wanted to be a football player, and I wanted to be a father, and I wanted to be a stand-up guy. I wanted to be able to show up when I said I was going to show up, and I wanted to be able to mean the words that were coming out of my mouth and have some truth to what was saying. I wanted to have some integrity. I wanted to live honestly, and none of that was going on in my life. I took a drink of alcohol at 14, and something changed. You know, I hadn't ever felt like I fit in anywhere. I never felt like I belonged anywhere. I grew up in a family that I used to say was a poor family, you know, because we got our clothes from the Salvation Army, and we'd have grits and eggs for dinner, and we'd scramble to eat, you know, and I would meet people who were, you know, going out to dinners and dressing real nice, and in the 70s, you know, in the late 60s and early 70s, you know, it wasn't cool to have Montgomery Ward corduroys. You know, it wasn't cool. You know, everybody else was wearing Levi 501 button flies, you know, and I'm walking around with these Montgomery Ward corduroys, and that was the beginning for me of this whole transition. to tell you what the book tells me to do tonight is to share with you in a general way what my life used to be like, what happened that brought me to Alcoholics Anonymous, and what my life is as today as a result of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm going to share a little bit about that with you. I felt weird long before I put a drink in my body. You know what I mean? It was just weird. You know, I always thought that if my life was a little different, I'd be okay. If I had your mom or your dad, I'd be okay. Or if I had your brother or your sister, I'd be okay. If I would be accepted at school to be the athlete that I thought I was, I'd be okay. You know, if I'd get straight A's in school without studying, I'd be okay. You know, and here I was, this 14-year-old pimple-faced kid. I had acne really bad. I had an afro about this big, you know, and don't laugh, in '73 afros were cool, even if you were white. And I got introduced. I had drank a few other times. You know, my father and them would have people over, and they'd be drinking all the time, and I'd be the kid to go help clean up the house and finish what you didn't. You know what I mean? So that really didn't affect me too much. But what really affected me was the first night that I remember ever getting drunk, and I got invited to a football game with some buddies, and who I thought they were buddies because they invited me. You know, and we ended up underneath the bleachers of Aviation High School down here in Redondo Beach, and they opened up a bottle of slow gin and a can of 7-Up, and they poured it together, and I got this pink head. Yeah, there's some 60 drinkers there, and I drank that down, and then they opened up a bottle of Southern Comfort, and we there we're in AA now, and we drank that down, you know, and then they rolled up a joint, you know, that they grew in their backyard or something, and we smoked that up, and my life changed. My acne went away, my hair straightened out, and I went looking for her. You know what I mean? And because there weren't no hers around me at that time. And what occurred for me was a change of perception immediately once I ingested alcohol. My whole perception of Jim changed, my perception of you changed, my perception of these problems I thought in my life changed. And I came to the next morning underneath those same bleachers. Acne had miraculously returned, my afro was all matted, and I was alone, you know, and so I got introduced to abandonment and fear real quick, and not feeling a part of anymore, and how could my partners leave me? Now they're my partners, you know, I didn't even know these guys, and how could they leave me there? And I knew that I was going to go home and get my ass kicked, because in '72 that was discipline. Today it's child abuse, but back then it was discipline, and I couldn't wait to do it again, you know. And that was at 14. Now, what I can tell you is I can tell you the whole story, but I got sober at 29 years of age. And my resume by the time I came to Alcoholics Anonymous was simply this. I had been married and divorced 2 times. I had had a daughter in my first marriage, and I wasn't coming home often enough, so she left me and married my best friend. That was good enough reason to stay drunk for a few more years. And then they challenged me to be a father and pay child support. Or sign the adoption papers, and I signed the papers. I signed the adoption papers, and I gave my daughter away. I need to back up real quick. At 14, just after that incident underneath the bleachers, I got in an incident with the law. I was trying to impress a woman, so I broke into a house and stole a gun, a credit card, and some money. And I went to the mall to buy some Elton John platform shoes and rent a limousine in a tuxedo and all this stuff. And I got surrounded by the Torrance Police Department. To make a long story short, I got surrounded by the Torrance Police Department, and some poor soul was coming out of the restaurant. I'd watched enough television to know what to do in this situation, and I got me a hostage. And I took this gun at 14 and I stuck it to his head, you know, and all I remember happening was looking around me and hearing that noise of shotguns, you know, locking, and I dropped the gun and I went to jail, and what occurred is during my 3rd hearing, because I pled innocent, I don't know what you do, but I'm innocent, you know, and this is just a mistake. And my father stood up and told the judge to keep me. And That was the second most traumatic thing that ever changed my life, because what I did with that information right then, I became a victim. Okay, victim is in the room. Victims, their fault, your fault, it's their fault. They didn't treat me right. They would have did something different, right? It would have been, yeah, okay? That's who I became. And I lived this life of I love you like this. I love you, but stay away. And that resulted in a marriage and a daughter. And when I got out of jail, the biggest thing that I wanted to do was prove my father wrong. He told me things like I was a liar, a cheat, and a thief, and that I was never going to be anything, and that unless I changed my life. If you're new and you come to AA, you might hear something like, "You're probably a liar, a cheat, and a thief, and nothing's going to change unless you change your life." That's what they told me when I came to AA, and what I did with that information, my tools for living were love you from 6 feet away. This loving and being loved thing was only on Father's Knows Best on television. You know, it didn't pertain to me. It was never going to happen. And I drank at him. I drank at my father. I got married and divorced, and I drank at my ex-wife for leaving me and married my best friend. And I signed the adoption papers at him to prove them they were right, and that maybe she's better off anyways. And then I stopped drinking for a little while. But I was smoking and taking pills and snorting stuff, and there was always something. And then I met her again, and we got married. And I'm the kind of guy, we talk for 20 minutes, we get along, we're in love. And I see a lot of that in AA going on too, but it's okay. My sponsor's sitting in the front row tonight, and he's heard the whole story. He knows the truth. He tells me my picker's broke. It's true. I don't marry well because I'm in the marriage, and so I got married, and we had another daughter, and by this time I'm 23, and my life's just spiraling down quickly. You know, the 9 years of that drinking at that point had just gotten ridiculous. And how it all ended up for me was simply this: my daughter got taken out of my home. My second daughter got taken out of my home by my ex-mother-in-law, and she made statements like, "You're incapable of being a father, and you're not going to screw up my granddaughter's life. And if you don't like it, call the cops." Now, the condition of my life at that point is I was 27 years old. I was putting 25 grams of cocaine a week up my nose. I was drinking like a fish. I was 6'2", 142 pounds, dying of alcoholism. I don't need no cops. And she took my daughter. And, you know, the big book, what I love about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and if you're new, I'd love you, you'll hear it all over. Get a sponsor, get a big book, anything else. I needed a tutor. You know, they call them sponsors around here. But I got this big book, and I got a tutor. And he sat down and he read the book with me. And he explained to me to find myself in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I started looking in there, and I started reading, and stuff started, I started relating to the stuff that was in the book, like spree and remorse drinking. See, I'd go on a spree, and I'd come off of this drunk whenever I came off, because I would have intentions of going to happy hour, and it'd all of a sudden become last call. You know what I mean? And I would drink. A friend of mine says he drinks to capacity. I don't know how long I'm going to drink. The plan is to have a couple. And that's Friday night, I'm going to have a couple. And the next thing you know, it's Tuesday. And I don't know what happened between Friday and Tuesday. You know? But what would happen Tuesday is I would be home alone, sitting in the fetal position, rocking back and forth, going, what happened? Why can't I stop drinking? God, I miss my kid. God, I want to see my daughter. You know, the plan was, Jim, to become a parent and show my father how he screwed up with me. You know what I mean? That was the plan. I don't know about you, but I've always had some really good intentions. Okay? And I've always had some really good plans. But alcohol told me when to eat, when to sleep, who to rob, who to steal from. It was their fault. You're not hurting anybody. God, I love that one, right? You know, you're in this thing alone. It's not that big of a deal. Have another drink, Jim. And when I read in the book about spree and remorse, I understood that. Because every time I would come down, I would become over remorseful. I would wish whatever just happened over the weekend, I don't care how grand the party and how kinky and weird we got and how fun we thought we had, when it was all over, I was home alone with Jim. And I didn't like that place. And I needed something to change my perception, so that something always became another drink. And what occurred to me, and I ended up trying to be a father. I had this moment that I decided that all I really ever wanted to do this in my life was be a father and be a stand-up guy. So I decided it was Christmas Eve in 1988, and I was going to go see my daughter. And I called my ex-mother-in-law, and she said, sure, come on up. I live in Torrance. They live in Eagle Rock. My crack connection's at 82nd and Figueroa. I don't have a car. I got my roommate's motorcycle, and I took a couple shots of tequila because it was cold outside, but that's not really drinking. I didn't know about a phenomenon of craving. I didn't know about an allergic reaction and a mental obsession that follows to my body once I ingest alcohol into it. I don't know anything about that. What I know, it's cold outside, I'm going to go see my kid. It's Christmas Eve. I went to Thrifty's and I got a couple presents, alcoholic style, and I strapped them on the back of the motorcycle. And I knew that there was no way in hell I was going to be able to get from Torrance to Eagle Rock without passing 82nd and Fig. So I had a plan. And the plan was I was going to be getting the fast lane on the motorcycle, and I was going to stay in the fast lane. And that was a really good plan. There's only one problem. I'm driving. And I got on the freeway at Torrance Boulevard, and I got right over to the fast lane. And I'm telling myself the whole time, I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping. By El Segundo, I was in the middle lane. I'm not stopping. Speed up a little bit. By El Segundo, I'm in the slow lane. You know where I ended up? I ended up down at the bottom of the Manchester off-ramp, turning left, heading to Figueroa. And I wasn't going to go there. And I went in to wish him Merry Christmas. And you know, the alcoholic / other stuff, Christmas presents. We give each other Christmas cards with supplies. And I took a drink, and I took a hit, and all of a sudden nothing matters. But there was another moment where my head said to me, you need to get out of here and you need to go show up. And I did. And I got out of there and I went and showed up at my daughter's. And I walked in and it was Christmas Eve. So they're bathed a couple times and really nicely dressed. Christmas tree's looking beautiful. The music's playing. The dinner's all set. Okay? And I wanted to be no place else. There was no other place I'd rather have been. And I walked in, and my daughter come running up to me. Her name's Jennifer. She was, I don't know, 2.5 feet tall at that time, 3 years old. And she put her arms around me and said, Daddy, Daddy, I love you. I'm glad you're here. And I lost it. I stayed 10 minutes because I had to go. See, because in that moment, what my head told me was, you're not worthy of this. You're a loser, Jim. You're a loser. You're going to screw this kid's life too. Go back to where you're comfortable. Go back to what you know. You know, you told yourself you weren't going to drink and get loaded tonight, and what did you do? You drank and you got loaded tonight. You know what I mean? Don't screw up another Christmas. Get the hell out of here. And I knew powerlessness for the first time in my life, that I understood it. And I got on that motorcycle and I drove down that freeway with the intentions of killing myself. I'm too chicken shit to kill myself. I don't like guns. I don't have a gun. I'm gonna shoot myself. Okay, so I'm gonna kill myself the bravado alcoholic way. I went back to 82nd and Figueroa and I got myself as much dope as I could. I went to the liquor store and I got myself a bottle of tequila, a bottle of rum, and a bottle of vodka. Right? I stopped at the porno shop to get me some entertainment. I went home. I duct taped the drapes. I put the towels against the door. Right? I got the tequila in one hand, I got a pipe in the other hand, I got a porno in there, and we're having a party. and I swore that I didn't eat for 6 days. All I did was drink and smoke and party and drink and smoke for 6 days. And I came to January 2nd of 1989 with a knock on my front door. My grandmother was behind that door. And I had called her in that 6-day period. I had called her and told her that I was trying to drink myself and use myself to death. That I didn't want to live my life anymore. That this was a waste of time, Grandma. And I'm really sorry I hurt you. You know, I broke into your house and stole your checks and stole your wedding rings and pawned your jewelry and ripped you off. And I am just what my father said. I'm just a loser. She showed up January 2nd, 1989, and I had apparently called Del Amo Hospital down in Torrance and asked for help. And she took me. There was a suitcase packed at the front door that I don't remember packing, and I ended up in Del Amo Hospital January 2nd of 1989. If you're new to AA, what I want to let you know that although, you know, I hear it in the rooms of AA that I haven't found it necessary to take a drink since January 2nd, 1989, I don't understand those people. I don't understand them. I've been sober 17 and a half years, and there's been some shit going on in my life that it's been real necessary to have a drink. Real necessary. And, but God hasn't found it necessary for me to take a drink yet since the day I got here. I didn't come here to get sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I had some thoughts in the first couple days of why I was there, you know. I was there to get the heat off. I was there to get my daughter back. I was there for all kinds of other reasons, but I wasn't an alcoholic. I had a drug problem. And what I realized in those days, they made us get up like at 6:15 in the morning and go for a walk. They called it movement therapy. You know, I told them no the first time they knocked on my door, and they said, pack your shit and get out of here, Jim, because we've seen people like you come through here. If you really want help, you're going to get out of bed, you know. And for the next 26 days at 6:15 in the morning, we went for walks. I don't know why. I really don't care. Okay? What I know is that it was the first time in my life somebody in an authoritative position gave me an instruction, and I followed it. Because I come from the streets. I got myself into this mess. I'll get myself out. And if I need you to help me, I'm going to owe you one. And I don't want to owe nobody nothing. Leave me alone. That I love you from 6 feet away. And the whole time I got this attitude popping off, all I'm saying is, help me, man. I'm just a scared kid trying to be a tough guy. You know, when I got sober, I had hair down to the middle of my back. I wore my baseball cap on backwards. I sat in the back of the room with my arm folded. You don't know me. You ain't done what I done. You haven't felt what I felt. You haven't been where I've been. So go on and do your little, you know, AA slogans and do your little shit. Just leave me alone. And the whole time I'm going out, why ain't nobody talking to me? Why don't I know nobody in AA? You know? And then I got this sponsor. And this sponsor, what he did was he sat down with me. He took time out of his life to sit down with me and explain what these black words in this book meant to an alcoholic and challenged me to ask myself if they applied to me. He didn't say, well, you know, just because you're in AA probably means you're an alcoholic. He didn't tell me that. What he told me was that he got to a place where when he ingested alcohol, something changed. And all his intentions went out the window. See, and he'd lose jobs, and he'd lose careers, and he'd lose the most important thing that he thought was in his life is he lost hope. And when he said that, I understood what he was talking about. And his name was Corey Paddock, and he's an amazing man. And what Corey did for me is he took me through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he spoon-fed them to me. He didn't become, we were just having a conversation before the meeting about this, he didn't become my buddy. We didn't hang out together, you know. He would give me an instruction like, I want you to go to this meeting, and I want you to introduce yourself to 10 people and say, hi, my name's Jim, I'm a newcomer. Hi, my name's Jim, I'm a newcomer, and see what happens. And I want you to do it every week. And when I got 31 days, I went to him and said, I'm not a newcomer no more. He says, good, we're going to go to another meeting where you're a newcomer till you're 90 days sober. And I was like, fudge. Okay? He gave me my first commitment in AA. He says, you're going to learn how to be accountable and responsible to other people. And I went, what? I don't care about other people. And he says, yeah, but we got the perfect job for you, Jim. We're going to make you the chairman. And I went, right on. And finally realized my potential. He said, yeah, stack the chairs. You know, and, I mean, that's what he did. He was the literature guy at a meeting, and he said, you know, this is my last week of being the literature guy, and Jim's volunteered. I didn't volunteer for shit. See? But what he taught me, now, many years later, and I mean many years because it took a while to understand, what he taught me was he wasn't telling me how to do AA. He wasn't telling me, he didn't should on me. Any of that going on around here? You should have did this, or you need to do that, or you should do that. He never did that. What he did is he showed me how to do AA. He said he wouldn't ask me to do anything that he wouldn't do, hasn't done, or would be willing to do next to me. And he taught me how to be a stand-up guy. Remember, that's all I wanted to be. I wanted to be a show-up guy, you know. I got about 9 months sober, and I said, you know what? Another page in the big book on page 452 of the 3rd edition, Dr. Paul talks about rights. About 9 months sober, my rights started to move back in. Right? Like, I want my kids back in my life. Right? It's time that my daughter come home to live with daddy. Right? And I made the mistake of telling my sponsor that. And he said to me, you're incapable of being a father. And I went, what? He said, fathers don't take their kids and go get drunk and stick them in a car seat and drive with them. Fathers don't spend the rent money and get eviction notices. And he just pulled, everything that came out of his mouth, half the stuff I hadn't told him yet, right, just came out of his mouth. And he says, you want to learn how to be a father around here? Why don't you learn how to show up? And I thought it was a little dramatic. And I said, okay, how do I do that, Corey? And he says, what I want you to start doing is I want you to start calling your daughter every Saturday. And if you can't call her on Saturday, don't tell her you're going to call next Saturday. I said, that's real good, Corey, but I don't have a phone. And he says, well, I suggest you pay back the phone company, Jim. And I said, this is a fun conversation. I said, well, that'd be nice, Corey, but I don't have no money. He said, I suggest you get a job, Jim. I'm 9 months sober, running around AA. I already lost 3 jobs because I get hired. You know, it's a great job, and I get hired. I'm there a week, and they're not doing it right, and I need to run the company. They don't keep me there. And so he told me that my job was to get up in the morning and go to the morning meeting. If I did, after the morning meeting, don't hang around, go look for a job. If I don't have a job by noon, go back to the noon meeting. After the noon meeting, go look for a job till 3:30. When you're done at 3:30, you don't have a job, you go back to the 4 o'clock meeting, you help set up, you hang around for the meeting. After the meeting's over about 6:30, hang out in the parking lot. Some poor soul will ask you for a cup of coffee or want to know if you want a bite to eat. Go with them. Don't order the most expensive thing on the menu, just eat. And then get up in the morning and go look for a job. And I said, okay, Corey, all right, because obviously my ideas aren't working. And I did that. And I got a phone. And I started calling my daughter. And I said, I want to come up and take Jennifer to the park. And they said, no. And I said, okay, it looks like I got more work to do. And so then I got a car. And then I got car insurance. And then I got a driver's license with my name on it, you know, which meant there was a lot of work to be done if you're new around here, you know. I mean, it was like warrants and you know, all the stuff that I had. I don't know if you have any of that stuff, but I had all that stuff, and I need to clean all that stuff up because Corey would not allow me to get behind the wheel. Allow me now. Now I can barely take instruction from somebody in authority, and here's this guy I'm asking to be my sponsor. Would not allow me to drive my car till I got car insurance, and showed him proof. You know what I mean? And what happened over that next 6-month period was that they allowed me to come up and see Jennifer. And a couple months later, they allowed me to take her to the park. And a couple months later, they asked me if I had a car seat, and I said no, and they said, well, get one. and they allowed me to bring her home for the weekend. I had met a woman in AA in that period. I told you how I work. We talked for a while. We were in love, and she was going to be the solution to all my problems. And because if I had a woman and a house and a car and a job and an insurance, they had to let Jennifer come home. We might have just hit on something, huh, Jay? And so at 2.5 years of sobriety, we planned to get married. Just before we planned to get married, my phone rang, and it was my ex-mother-in-law. I said, Jim, I need to talk to you. Come on up here. And what she said to me was the most profound thing I'd ever had any other person say to me in my life to that point. And she says, you know, Jim, it's time for Jennifer to come home and live with her father. How do you do that? I bundled my daughter up and I brought her home, and now I knew that everything was in place, and me and this woman ran off and we got married, and we set up an AA household. You know, we had functions in our house. You guys taught me how to open my house and invite people in and enlarge the circle of people around me. If you're new, if you don't hear anything else, enlarge the circle of people around you. Okay? And I kept reaching out, and I was sponsoring people, and I was going to meetings, and I was at service levels more than I wanted. Every time I'd get in a service level, and I'd call Jay. I got Jay as a sponsor, 3.5 years sober, because Corey moved away, and I relived all this with Jay, and Jay kept telling me that to enlarge the circle, and I really didn't know why or what it meant, but I have a really good understanding of it now. Because anywhere I go in Alcoholics Anonymous, I know somebody. And it's a real comforting, safe thing. So I did that. We set up house. I got Jennifer back in my life. I'm learning how to be a father. You know, my career's going real well. Everything's just perfect in Alcoholics Anonymous. And on June 18th, 1998, I had a heart attack. I was 9.5 years sober. I was sponsoring a lot of guys, and I ended up in the hospital with a heart attack. And Jay, for the last 5 years prior to that, had been getting me into 10th and 11th step work. He'd been getting me into prayer and meditation. And I can't pray and meditate. I mean, I can pray because I love to talk, okay? But I can't meditate because I don't want to listen. Got some of that going on? Yeah. I understand. So Jay gave me a simple instruction. He told me to go get an egg timer and set it for 3 minutes. And I said, well, I got a wife, and she's got 2 daughters, and I got Jennifer back in my life, and now the kids at that point are like 10, 12, and 13, and there's hair dryers and blow dryers and all this shit going off, and you know, and you want me to sit and get quiet, you know, and it's a great concept, but okay. And he said, you got a garage? And I said, yeah. And then he gave me a book to read about this guy who made his garage his hermitage, and how he went out there and meditated and talked to some dragon and shit. And so I figured, what the hell, you know, he hasn't been wrong yet. And so I went out to my garage and I set the timer for 3 minutes, and I'm going to try and get to this new level of AA and get all spiritual. So I set the egg timer for 3 minutes, and I got in that comfortable sitting position between comfort and sleep, and set the egg timer for 3 minutes, and 3 minutes later the egg timer goes off. And I called Jay, and I said, meditation's overrated. And he said, he asked me to repeat to him what happened. And I said, I got in the garage, and I said, okay, God, this is your 3 minutes. Please tell me whatever it is you need to tell me so I can hear whatever it is you need to hear. Something like that. And all of a sudden, I hear the gardener down the street. And I hear the traffic. And I hear these birds in this tree I had next to my house. And the timer went off, and it was like, that was a waste of frickin' 3 minutes. You know? And he said to me another profound thing, that just when you're open, you hear stuff. And he asked me when was the last time I was present enough to hear the birds sing. He said, that's God's music, Jim. You actually got to hear it. I'd been living in that house for 3 years and sat out on my patio on many occasions with them birds and never heard them. Never paid attention to them. You know what I mean? So I bought it. I said, I'm in. I'm in. And I started practicing meditation more and more. And my life changed. I realized that I, somewhere between 9 years sober and 11, 12 years sober, I realized a few things. I had some more revelations, like, I'm not who I want to be. It looks from the outside that I got some stuff going on, but I'm not comfortable on the inside. And there was some stuff going on in my marriage. We had met so early in sobriety. By now of 9 years sober of me doing a lot of spiritual exercises, a lot of internal work, and a lot of inventories, and a lot of hours sitting with Jay. We were on two totally separate paths. We had two totally different belief systems. We had two totally different moral systems. And I couldn't live that way anymore. And I realized by looking in the mirror that I was selling my soul to be with a woman to tell me I was okay. And I stood up for myself for the first time in my relationship. Because everything in my house, and this isn't about her, my perception of what was going on in my home was that everything was fine as long as I said yes. I don't know if that's the truth or not, but that's my perception. Okay? And I stood up and I said, no, this isn't okay with me anymore. And 2 days later, they moved out. 2 days later, they moved out. And I got consumed with fear, and how am I going to be a father now? How can I do what I'm doing? You know, was this the right, did you say something wrong? You know, I mean, all the stuff that goes on. If you've ever been through a breakup sober, all that stuff was going on. Did I make the right decision, the wrong decision? And about a year later, we end up in court, because that's what happens on occasion. And the judge slapped me with a whole bunch of alimony. Whole bunch of alimony. And I called Jay, right? And I said, I'm going to quit my job. I got some real good ideas. I'm going to quit my job. They wanted me to pay her close to $15,000 a year, and I only made like $60,000 a year at the time. And I said, I can't do that. I can't even. We weren't surviving with 2 incomes in a 3-bedroom house, and now I got to go get an apartment with my daughter. Blah 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 blah. And I'm going to quit my job. And Jay says, don't. What I'd like you to do, Jim, is before you make any decision, is sit for 3 days in meditation. Just sit. Maybe you can get in touch with what he calls the small, still voice. And I had developed a relationship with the small, still voice over those periods of years of meditation. And what happened for me was the very next day, I got called into my boss's office, and they offered me a position in South Orange County that happened to come with a $15,000 increase in my salary. I kind of went, cool. I didn't want to, you know, and the reason I tell that story on occasion is because I don't know what the power has in store for you. I really don't. Because I don't know what the power has in store for me still today. I have an idea of who he wants me to be and how he wants me to be, but I don't know what he has in store for me, and I don't know where the journey is going to go. But what I do know is that if I invite the power in, things happen. My life has changed as a result of sitting in silence with the power. My life has changed as a result of inviting the power in. The Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, if you're new to us, prior to doing an inventory, if you've heard about it and you get all weird and people make a big deal about it, prior to doing an inventory in the Big Book of AA, what it says at the beginning of taking an inventory is that it says that when we straighten out spiritually, we will then straighten out mentally and physically. That I suffer really from a spiritual malady. But once I straighten out spiritually, I will then straighten out mentally and physically. And what that means for me is I can't just not drink or use no matter what. Because that's trying to address the physical. I can't not drink and go to meetings and have that be enough and think I'm going to be okay. I have to straighten out spiritually. And you're talking to a man who had spiritual prejudice. I heard spiritual, you said church, and I said screw it. I'm screwed. Okay? This is not a religious program. It's based on a whole bunch of religious input, but it is one of spiritual in nature. Okay? The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't even say you have to describe your God. You just have to make a decision. He either is or he isn't. Once I made the decision that he was everything, my life changed. Today I have no worries. I really don't. My life today is one simply of I get up in the morning, I ask God to put somebody in my life I can help, and I try and keep the wreckage to a minimum. See? That's what it's about. It's about cleanup and maintenance. You know, they say that the last 3 steps of AA are about maintenance. The big book, and you hear it all over in AA, says my sobriety is contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. That's all this is. It's just a maintenance program. It has worked perfectly for this alcoholic since the day I got here and became open-minded enough to take a few suggestions. If you're new to AA, I want to welcome you to Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to let you know that I know how you feel. If I've been where you've been, I've done what you've done, and if I haven't, I can introduce you to some people who have. We don't do this thing alone. And the bigger the circle, the better my life has become. Join the circle. God bless.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, And it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.